Go, go, go.
There we go, our first intro.
Hey, I love it. Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Amber Nicole. Welcome to Rockhound Talk Live. And this is my new co host, Ben Chorn, and also our guest tonight. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to get this going.
I am too. Ben and I have put in a lot of work the last 8 weeks to revamp this show. If anyone has watched the previous episodes, there was quite a bit of technical issues on the Facebook Live front, from visual quality to technical issues with getting people on the live on time, just everything. So we found a really good streaming platform, and we're starting off the ending of the season and starting off a new one on a good foot. So we're here. So admittedly, I was just talking to Ben. Ben and I have been working on this, like I said, 8 weeks, and it's been just strictly just all this show that I haven't even personally asked Ben anything. So this, everything that he's telling us today will be new for all of us. I don't know Ben's story or his where his passion for rocks and minerals, and even down to what he does on a daily basis. So I'm really excited to learn more actually about you since you're my co-host.
Right, I think the most is you've seen some photos we've shared, and that's been
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, really. So whoops, why don't you tell us a bit about your start in loving rocks and minerals, and how did that all start for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to pinpoint an exact point in time. I mean, I was a kid that collected, rocks every so often. Being in Minnesota, everyone loves Lake Superior agates. It almost takes on like a mythical form at times because you always hear about going to the beaches on Lake Superior and finding little Lake Superior agates, but then you see some of these people that have these just beautiful, large, Lake Superior agates, and it becomes this mythical thing of like, being able to find something like that. And the more you learn about it, you do find out that yes, you're never going to find a 1 pound agate on the shore at Lake Superior. They come from other areas. But
Mhm.
as a kid, I just kind of started collecting just little, just a few, nothing that, would be anything crazy. I still remember I've got the first agate I ever found. It's only about this big, but I remember it was actually on a bike trail on a state park by a state park, and just a kid, and I picked it up and went, "Oh, that's really cool." And then from there, it just kind of lingered, and then I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do maybe for college, and then I got lucky, and we had an earth science class in high school, and
Mhm.
that was where I really kind of like, this is kind of pretty cool. And then decided actually for college, I said, I want to do environmental science and geology because I like the outdoors and this seems like a good pairing to do. And then went to college and learned that environmental science was not something I really enjoyed. It was more of like a soft science that I
Mhm.
really like to get into the nitty gritty, where geology's got chemistry, math, physics, all sorts of different actual sciences. And so I decided that I would instead minor in environmental science. And then I actually picked up a business degree. So I actually got
Nice.
2 degrees. I actually got my bachelor's in geology with a minor in environmental science. And then I also have a bachelor's in business management as well. Um,
Nice.
and then I was trying to figure out what to do afterwards and talked with a professor. And he said, "Hey, uh, you know, um, why don't you think about grad school?" So then I went and it, you know, did that. I applied to a bunch of different ones, and then went ahead and uh, didn't get into most of them. Had some ones I really thought I was going to, and I got put actually on the wait list for the University of Minnesota Duluth, and
Hmm.
it was sort of a safety. I didn't think much of it, and then the day of decisions, someone had decided to go somewhere else, and I got bumped off the waiting list to accepted.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out to be this amazing thing. I had a really good advisor, made some discoveries, got research published, did all that stuff. And then I stayed a little bit afterwards and got to work on some more local stuff. And then after that, had some issues getting a job. So I wound up working in the oil fields in Wyoming and North Dakota for a bit. And then the oil prices tanked, got laid off. And then now I'm doing environmental consulting, originally doing this in Chicago, and then I moved back to Minnesota finally after, I don't know how many years. Was able to finally make it back, and throughout all that, I've just been nothing but growing my interest. So it seems like every time I'm doing vacations, it's something's gonna be revolving around rocks or
Rocks.
minerals, and
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, it's just been something that's just grown, and now it's I guess turning into a podcast, and
Yeah.
and I like expanding it too. I'm in the Minnesota Mineral Club doing a lot of work with that. I've given some talks at various Boy Scout events, both to Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts with geology. So it's just, kind of grown from that. Looking at the comments, someone says they can't hear us. If you can hear us, please drop a comment. Hi, Christy. I see your comment. If you can hear us or not hear us, I guess.
Hey, Greg. Let's see. We've got Greg, we've got David, Mary Lee, Christy. Thank you for joining. Yes, Dawn. Hey, Dawn. Loud and clear. Whoop whoop. Audio is
great.
fine. If you can't hear Mary Lee, you might want to maybe leave and come back. Maybe that will help. As it sounds like everyone else can hear us. Not sure. Tennessee in the house. Hey, thank you, David. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so you were saying, sorry.
I want to make sure everyone can hear. It's, I don't want to be talking to my computer all night. I want to make sure I'm talking to you guys too.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, all right. Oh, Sandy. So you were saying you are doing consulting right now. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, so I do environmental consulting, which basically the way I the shortest version I see is I do a lot of soil and water testing. That's the main part of my job. So we look for contamination and help companies clean it up. That's usually the most of what we do. We also do, for us, we do a lot of work with Department of Transportation. So if they're going to be doing road work, they need to know if they're going to hit any contamination for both the workers and then also disposal purposes. So that's kind of what I do. And it's not really, rocks and minerals for the most part. And I've been telling my boss, you need to start sending me to constructions where I can find agates, because parts of Minnesota where there aren't agates. And I'm like, come on, like I could be, if I'm going to watch people dig dirt all day, I should at least be able to look for agates.
Find a rock yeah. So yeah. I'm curious. You know how like miner or people who own mines and they have to have like a geologist like assess, what they have. Like, have you ever considered doing that? Because I think that would be fun.
I mean, initially, I actually was trying to get into more of the like mining. A short preview: our guests that we're having on in April got their geology degree in economic geology from Nevada, Reno, and I was actually looking at going to Nevada, Reno for a master's in economic geology, which was a little crazy to me reading that, because I was looking at the timeframes and I was like, if I would have went, I would have actually met them. So it was something that was interesting to me, but if you ask me to like go to some property and look at, do you have gold or whatever, I wouldn't know. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff in geology. People feel like geologists know like every mineral. I've met a lot of people that, I mean, I remember I met a guy online on Reddit who actually invited me to go to it was how I got into some of the fluorescent minerals in New Jersey. And he said, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be out in New Jersey, whatever. I can meet up with you. My dad's really into stuff, and his dad is actually a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to the Franklin Mineral Museum, and he
Yes.
knew all the minerals. He knew all the things to look for. We went to the dumps and we're poking around there. And I'm like, I have no idea what most of these minerals are. I can identify calcite.
Yeah.
After looking at the minerals in the museum, it's like, okay, I know what franklinite looks like, but if you shove a rock in my face, there's certain things that I can, the main minerals I can figure out. But if I'm being honest, I know a lot of people that are way more into minerals that they know way more than me as a geologist, but I've got the knowledge to look it up if I, know something that's not quite there. And in all honesty, I was really into geomorphology, so how landscapes form,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. So I'm really good at, if you put me on to, a hill, I can kind of look around and figure out, how do the landscapes change and all of that stuff. That's the part of geology that I really enjoyed.
Which is important because that's going to help you find the rocks. I mean, knowing
Yeah.
how everything formed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've given talks about like Montana agates. I spent some time with undergrad. Like I said, I mentioned that I did my undergrad in Montana at Rocky Mountain College in Billings, and did a whole bunch of rock hounding there for Montana agates. Actually, more so after college. I was so busy with college with 2 degrees that I didn't really have much time to get out. So I did a lot more afterwards. And I've given presentations where I say, everyone loves to go down to the Yellowstone River, find them at the river. That's where everyone knows. But there's tons of gravel bars up above where the river was before. And if you kind of know some of that history and can spot some of those, especially in Minnesota too, where you can find places where the glaciers have gone, that helps out a lot.
Yeah. 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 Um, that's one area that like I'm still like personally trying to get better at. So now I know who to go to. Is
Yeah.
trying to understand that better. I mean, like I have a small grasp on it, but not where I feel like I know enough to be able to not necessarily assess like you do, but to there's some people that are, rockhounds that, you know, follow the I guess what's the right word for the map with all the glacial movements and patterns. Is there a certain name for that kind of map?
I mean, there's just we'll call them geologic maps.
Oh, okay, just okay. So
Yeah.
there's people that can look at those and then be able to take that map and go to these areas and be able to figure out, where to go and look. Like I'm still not good at that. So that's something that
Yeah.
I need to work on. So now I know who to go to.
Yeah, and it's something that honestly, it's experience. When I first started looking for agates in Montana, I'd be happy that I found a bunch of little ones, and then you start kind of understanding the rivers and how things are, and then you
Hmm.
start, knowing where else to go, and then you start thinking, that I've spent, I don't know, countless hours probably on Google Earth, just, going down gravel bars and trying to figure out, could this be a good one, or, beyond the river, trying to figure out, with access and all sorts of things. So it's one of those. The more you do it, and also it's a lot of time. I know a lot of people looking for Lake Superior agates. They go to the beaches on Lake Superior because they're right there, and that's
Hmm.
where everyone goes. Um, but I can tell you, putting in the time of looking at maps of where the gravel is, driving down roads, looking at farm fields, knocking on doors, trying to get access to farm fields. That's what I started to do, and I've been rewarded for it. So I wish, it's you get what you get. You give in.
So you think, would your opinion be that someone may find better agates more in the field than on the lakeshore?
Yes, yeah, definitely. The the rock sizes that you find on Lake Superior are usually about this, and I mean you can find big boulders almost in farm fields.
Wow. Wow, I
So
didn't know that.
I haven't, so in Lake Superior agate world, a pounder is a big agate, and so there's always the elusive pounder club.
Hmm.
I haven't found my pounder yet. I've been close, but I've been getting closer now. And it's one of those that I've been to, I don't know how many different farm fields that 4 or so that I've gotten contacts with, and
Hmm.
gone out and just looked, and some of it's just time. sometimes if I know it's going to rain, I'll go out and look in the rain. I'll take work off on a Wednesday to go do that and
Oh,
walk a
that's cool.
cornfield in the rain. So it's, it's always those, you never know what you're going to get, which is, I guess why everyone loves it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wanted to ask, as somebody who's newer into coming into rock hounding, really interested, been watching the show, maybe they're in the Facebook groups and, they're the watcher and not the commenter, they're just absorbing. What kind of advice or information would you share with them to help them get started as a newer rock hound?
Yeah, I think Facebook is a great place to start. I will caution against it. You have to be careful about who you're talking to. I've seen people get very upset that they get told that something is not an agate and they swear it is. And you'll have geologists, hobbyists, lapidars, everyone say it's not an agate. And they'll be like, no, it is. And so there are people, even people that, I've seen just flat out wrong answers from people that aren't geologists and they just
Mm-hmm.
spout it out like they know what they're talking about. So you have to kind of be careful on Facebook. I'm not saying you can't ever ask questions and get answers.
Mm-hmm.
Just take it with a grain of salt. Make
Salt.
sure you figure out who you're talking to because there's a lot of sometimes bad information. I think some of it's just misplaced confidence.
Okay.
And I know that some people who don't have a geology degree, but they definitely know what they're talking about. So I think it's kind of one of those, if just be positive in what you're looking at. And if you don't know, I'll be the first as a geologist to say, I don't know. I've had plenty of people come up to me and say, what is this? And I'll give a rough estimate of what I think it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't know, I'm going to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook can be a decent place, but in all honesty, the best place to go is a mineral club. Mineral clubs have people that are sometimes experts. There's a couple geologists I know in Minnesota Mineral Club that I'm in. And that's really the best place to go. And then, honestly, if you go to a mineral club in your area, you're going to be going and, meeting with people that know the areas too, because everyone likes to go out and look for rocks. And if you're meeting people from that area, they're going to know the best places to go, the things to look at, all of those. So mineral clubs are the best. And then too, just books. There's a lot of different books out there and a lot of websites too. I will say some places like Reddit, there's like the Rockhound subreddit. I like that one because they'll actually
Really?
give flares to people that are geologists. So
Oh.
like I have a flare that says I'm a geologist. So if, 5 people comment on a thing and they say, oh, it looks like plagioclase. And I come in and say, well, no, it actually kind of looks like, it might be, quartz or something like that, which is not probably the best example, but, you'll kind of know, oh, he's a geologist. He might know. And people need to understand too, in geologists will argue with geologists too. So that's just part of the science, and part of it is it's not always an exact thing, and we can't always stick something under a microscope or into something to analyze it. But
Right.
the mineral clubs are the best. You'll get news, a lot of them. You'll get newsletters, you've got rock shows, you've got field trips, and those are always the ways to learn. Yeah.
Good. So I didn't know about the Reddit. I'm not really a Reddit person, so that's interesting. Maybe it might be something that I will want to use as a resource. I guess I just
Yeah,
hadn't thought about.
yeah, and there's with Reddit too, there's a couple really nice subreddits. One's called What's This Rock? And so it's a
Mm-hmm.
very nice, it's become a little bit overtaken by some of the crystal people that'll buy those towers of random crystal and they'll say, what is this? And it's like, well, it's all cut and polished and who knows? It's like, do you want to know? Smack it with a hammer and we'll see what the cleavage is. But there's also one called Fossil ID. That one's really good. I've used that too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
fossil ID. I'm familiar with. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
That
yeah,
one I'm
Fossil
familiar
ID,
with.
What's This Rock? Rock hounds, there's lapidary, faceting, geology. And then I've also started to, I've only looked, I know if my fiance is watching, she's going to be a little bit nervous, but I started looking at, there's one for radioactive rocks. And they do like a whole, like they'll educate and like, I just like looking at the photos and some of the stuff that people own that's radioactive is they're pretty spicy. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
educating is really important when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just looking at some of the comments here.
Oh, hi, Wayne.
Hey, Wayne. I had to put somebody in timeout.
I did see that come through.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Let's see. Everybody's just really. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to ask him? Which is really cool about this new platform is that we can pull your questions over, like I did Will's here, or your comments over rather. So if you have a question, we can pull it over, and so that we are streaming on 4 different accounts right now, so it will, show to everybody. So you are going to, we're going to be in New York in May, and you are taking a trip there with your mineral club. And what is the trip in May that you're doing with them?
Well, yeah, it's actually the first weekend of June. So we are going to the couple spots in northern New Jersey for fluorescent minerals. So that's one of the nice things about these trips with the mineral clubs is a lot of times you'll get access that you wouldn't get otherwise. So we are going through the Sterling Hill Museum and getting a private tour of the mine and everything like that.
That's
We're doing
cool.
collecting there. We're also doing the Franklin Mineral Museum and the dump site there. We're doing day collecting, and then they also have a public night collecting, so we'll be doing that as well. So that's a trip we're doing. And honestly, if you love field trips, join a mineral club or multiple mineral clubs. For insurance purposes, you'll have to be a member. So like for ours, for the Minnesota Mineral Club, I want to say it's about $24 for the year for a single person, and it's $36 for a family. So it's very affordable. You get, almost monthly meetings, you get a newsletter, and you get access to field trips. And the field trips that we're doing this year for the Minnesota Mineral Club are a lot. I'm the field trip director, and it's been almost nonstop. We actually already did trips to New Mexico and Arizona. In May, we've got a family-friendly trip to a fossil quarry in Iowa, and then we're going to the UP for some copper minerals in May. Then we basically go to, someone's organizing a Herkimer trip right before our New Jersey trip. So we got Herkimer diamonds, fluorescent minerals in New Jersey. And then I'm trying to think in June. I'm actually doing a agate trip for a mineral club in the UP of Michigan in June.
Oh, nice.
And then in July, we have a Colorado trip. We did it last year, and it's probably going to turn into a yearly trip for our club. We'll look for Amazonite, smoky quartz, topaz, barite. We did fossils last time. I don't think they're going to do fossils again this time. Just all sorts of really cool things, and so areas like if you watch the show Prospectors on the Weather Channel, the Doris family was on there. And they only give access to clubs, so unless you're in a mineral club, you won't be able to go onto their claims. So that's one that's going on in July. August, we've got a big Montana trip for agates and dinosaur bones, and then we've also got a member that is doing a marathon trip to western Montana for garnets and sapphires and all that stuff. Then going to Wyoming for petrified wood and fossil fish, and then South Dakota for Fairburns and all that kind of stuff. So there's just a ton of.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then beyond that too, I'm doing a trip in Minnesota for Starlight. I'll be probably leading that one.
Wow.
We've also got someone's organizing a trip to Chicago, and that's going to be a non-collecting trip, but a museums trip. So we're going to a bunch of different museums in the Chicago area too. So I mean, we've got
Now,
so many field trips.
do you have to live in Minnesota to be a part of it?
You don't. So that's the really nice thing. So like our Montana trip, we do that every year, Labor Day weekend. And I think, so I'm trying to remember last year how many people. I think we had about 50 people or so that were on our trip last year, and we had people from most people were from Minnesota, but we also have people from Missouri, California, and we also have a group from Michigan that sometimes comes out. I don't know if they did it last year, but we have people from all over the U.S. that will join. And our club is really great in that we do Zoom meetings. So if you have a topic that is really cool and you want to, learn about it, you don't even have to be in attendance. We've got our next meeting coming up in April here. Actually, we have Chris Clements from the Fluorescent Mineral Society talking
Yeah.
about fluorescent minerals. So if you're interested in that too, you don't even have to be a member to attend the meetings. We allow visitors as well. So you can look at the Minnesota Mineral Club and go on some field trips, learn some things about rocks, or just look up your local clubs. There's so many out there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It looks
Well, I guess I'm probably not a member now because it's a new year and it's been a busy beginning of the year. But I was last year of the Friends of Mineralogy of Midwest. So there are a lot of clubs. However, the club that you're speaking of, I mean, that's a lot of trips. That's incredible.
yes, yeah. I talked in our last
But you're
newsletter.
the director of that, so you're coordinating all that. So that's
Yeah,
great.
it can be a lot at times, especially when we do signups on our website. So when there's website issues, it can be a lot. Um, it looks like we got a question.
Oh yeah.
Greg says, "Are any of the agates that you collect fluorescent under long wave?" Actually, surprisingly, not Lake Superior agates. I know the fluorescent sodalite. That's kind of what it got popularity because some
Mm-hmm.
people were trying to look for agates with long wave. The Lake Superior agates, you won't find any. I found a couple that fluoresce a little bit, but it's not anything. However, I will say a lot of the agates in Montana will fluoresce. Not every
Yeah.
Montana agate. I'd say maybe 5 to 10% of my Montana agates do fluoresce. Some of them are white, some of them are green, and then a lot of they call them like cold water agates or limestone agates in Montana. A lot of those will fluoresce. So like your Bear Canyons, I should check. I've got some Teepee Canyon. I should try and check that. But a lot of those, your dry heads, a lot of those will fluoresce too. Some of those, because it's urinal or uranium activated, your best is to use a shortwave light rather than a long wave. It needs a
Yeah,
little
it'd
bit
be
more
much
uranium to show up in the
brighter.
long wave.
Yeah.
But yeah. So and there's a lot of worldwide agates that fluoresce. Crazy lace agates. The Dugway geodes aren't technically agates, but they look kind of like agates. A lot of thunder eggs. The Baker Ranches fluoresce really well. Purple Passion, I've seen some Purple Passion agates, Lagunas, even some of those. So long waves are really cheap. The technology for that has come a long way. I just did worked with our club, the Minnesota Mineral Club, to actually get flashlights for people and get filters on them and do all of that. And I think the kits with a flashlight, filter, 2 batteries, and a charger, we were looking at like $65. So
That's
they're
good.
really,
That's really
really
good.
cost effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Shortwaves are a lot more
yeah,
expensive.
I know. So Greg had asked if it was worthwhile. I mean, my personal opinion is yes. I think having a long wave UV light, I think is something that, I don't know. If you like fluorescent, I think it's something that you should have. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and like I've told people this before. You don't need a a UV light to collect fluorescent minerals. I actually started collecting fluorescent minerals before I had a light, before I had a display case. And it's one of those that, if you see a good deal, if it's something you really like, go ahead and get it. And then I just saved up, and it took me a couple years, and I finally bought a shortwave. It's actually just a field collecting light, but it's one of the bigger brick
Yeah.
ones that I could actually fit onto something if I wanted to do a short display. And now it's grown. I have a huge display case of a shortwave and longwave in the display case, the OP3 acrylic, and the whole nine on it. So,
So you
um,
don't need a long wave light to collect them, but you do need them to see it, fluoresce, correct?
yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
some things it's almost like almost everything will fluoresce. Some things you do, like I know looking for sodalite, some of the rocks will look really similar. They'll look white, and so if you grab a bunch of white rocks off a beach in Michigan, it might not be all sodalite, but um some of the other stuff, like I've got a lot, and I can tell you it's kind of one of those, like the saying, if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you've got a UV flashlight, everything looks fluorescent. So you will check your entire collection if you get a UV flashlight, and you might be surprised. There's been some interesting things that people have found, and I've found too. Just
Mm-hmm.
you've got a box of rocks that you've had sitting around for a while, and you check it with a light, and it's holy cow! I didn't know that this would be like
Yeah.
this.
There's some tricksters though in that, things will fluoresce red and it's just algae. It's not calcite. There are some things that you learn as you get into the fluorescent world of minerals that you realize you think you have something really great and it's not. When you clean it, it goes away. So I
Yeah.
mean, there are things that glow like organically that aren't necessarily the rock that's glowing. So you do have to learn. You learn in time as you collect and resources and getting connected with people who are in the fluorescent world. But obviously I'm a fluorescent person, so I'm going to say yes, you should have at least a long wave.
Yeah.
Have you been, I was going to say, have you been, nobody even thinks about this because everybody's like Lake Superior, Lake Superior. Personally, and I may be a little biased, but I think Lake Erie and Lake Ontario has the best fluorescent sodalites. Have you hunted out that far yet for any fluorescent rocks?
I haven't been out that far. I have been to the Keweenaw in the UP of Michigan. I went kind of when the sodalite craze was close
Mm-hmm.
to high gear. I went to a beach a couple nights, and I've got a vase full of sodalite cyanite, sodalite rich cyanite.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I've done a little bit of that stuff, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I will say anyone that is into sodalite, if you look at any of the other sodalite, especially the stuff from Afghanistan is brighter. The stuff from Greenland is the brightest you're ever gonna see. I've done some comparisons. If you track down some sodalite from Greenland and you put it next to those that you
Uh-huh.
get on the beaches of Michigan, it's night and day, pretty
Yeah,
much. Pun intended. That it's so much brighter. And
yeah.
the one thing I will say, one of my favorite minerals right now is hackmanite. It is a
Mm-hmm.
type of sodalite,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to describe it as sunburn, but it's a tenerbescent. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's like clear and you hit it with a UV light, it'll turn like purple.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost give it like a sunburn, and it actually will naturally fade.
You got
And
to go
people have,
up to Bancroft.
yeah, and you get hackmanite and Bancroft too, and
Oh yeah, it's
Mount Saint
gorgeous.
Hilaire, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's yeah. We actually had someone in our mineral club approach me a couple meetings ago that said, hey, we're new members. We've been up here. This sounds like this would be a really good trip. And I said, not this year. We have way too much, but that might be something that we might be doing next
Oh,
year.
Bancroft, they
It's
have the CN, which Greg, I'm sure, knows about, the CN dump pile. It's like amazing. It's just like this huge pile of hackmanite. I mean, I was there last summer and I'm telling you, this size that I have, I mean, I could barely carry it. It's got to be 50, 60 pounds. And it's just this huge, beautiful hackmanite that just, oh my God. And you can just, I mean, you take that, everything glows there. It's incredible. If anybody is listening and wants to know where it's at, I'm happy to give it to you because everybody in Canada knows where it's at. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but people in the area, Ontario, who know about the stuff. It's it's incredible. I went there during the day, but I know what I was looking for. Well, it's like all Hackmanite there. So, it's a great experience, and it's just like it's free. It's just a dump pile, so it's really cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
there's a lot of cool places like that.
yeah,
You'll find some of it looking online, different, blogs and whatever, joining mineral clubs. But
yeah.
yeah, there's so many cool places like that around. I will say I did see one of the comments ask about
Oh yeah.
if people are out of state to join trips or whatever. As long as you are a member, if you pay for the whole year and you show up for one field trip, we don't mind. But um, for insurance purposes, because our insurance only covers people that are members. So if you want to
Okay.
join a field trip for a mineral club, you will have to be a member, but you can go to a lot of the meetings. Mineral clubs will say, just become go as a visitor if you want to kind of see what the meetings are about, and then you can become a member. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any other questions here.
I
Still
agree,
trying to
Wayne,
listen.
about the Turkish agates. They do have a nice glow. They are very pretty.
Yeah, and honestly, fluorescents now it is the next hot thing
It
in
is.
mineral and rockhound
It
collecting,
is.
and it's crazy. I started getting into fluorescent minerals a couple years ago, and I've bought in some Greenland minerals, and I remember the prices that I was paying for them, and now they've gone up probably, I don't know, 30% at least on some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it almost made me, you start thinking about investments. It's like, oh, if I would have
Yeah.
invested
I was
my money
literally
in,
just thinking that, like investment. Yeah.
yeah, instead of putting my, forget my retirement account and stocks, I'm just gonna buy rocks and then wait a few years and then I'll cash out and retire. But no, yeah, it's crazy how much they're getting popular now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it speaks to how accessible the technology is now, because you can spend, 50, $70 on a flashlight and that's all you need. And you can go out and find them. And obviously you can get way more expensive from there, but
Hmm.
it's so easy to get into. And I've been seeing a lot more at mineral shows of people carrying them, and even vendors now too. Vendors will use it as a selling tool to have in their booths to sell rocks and minerals.
Yes. It's fun. Let's see here. Hey, Tony. Thanks for joining us. Just looking here. Oh, Red Clown Mine are bonkers with fluorescent combos. Hey, Mineral Monsters, welcome. So at Red Cloud Mine, is it long wave or short wave? I'm just curious. I know our guest that's going to be on, Ellie, she was just there with the Brian, the crystal collector. They just had a YouTube video about the Red Cloud Mine and fluorescent rocks out there. So I was just curious if they were long wave or short wave. We'll wait
Yeah,
for Mineral Monsters to come
both.
back.
Yeah,
Both. Is
both is always the best answer.
it? So, Ben, what's your favorite rock or your favorite mineral?
That's really tough. I mean, as a geologist, that's like asking,
I
a music.
know.
It's like a music head, like who's your favorite band? And it's like,
I
well, you got to
know.
narrow it down, or what was your favorite concert? Whatever. Um, as a geologist, I would have to say, from a geology standpoint, I don't know if you've heard of slicken sides.
No,
I
I
just
haven't
like the
actually.
name for one. It's what
It's a cool name.
in a fault will the pressure and friction of a fault will actually sort of metamorphose a surface, and it'll polish and scrape a surface
Hmm.
of a rock. And I've actually got one that I found in Montana, but they're really cool just because it kind of gives you, it was a fault and the rocks were moving, and that's how it formed those features. And It's really cool. I've got one. You can't quite feel it on that one, but some of them you can actually feel the grooves and can tell which way the fault was slipping on the rocks. So as a geologist, I like slicking sides, and breccias are probably a close second. But as a mineral rockhound collector, um, it's kind of a tough one. Agates are always just one of those sort of a childhood, like close to my heart, sort of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
It's not anything gourmet, but it's
That's
some
a
of
good
those.
analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that home, kind of feel of nostalgia of being a little kid and finding agates. I've always loved agates, but that some of the really cool stuff I've been collecting now too are some of the Terlingua type calcites. I've liked those a lot,
Oh,
and kids
yes.
go crazy for them. When I show fluorescent
Where are
rocks
you
to
getting
kids,
those? Because I thought they weren't. I thought that mine was closed.
I'm not sure if it's closed or not, but I've got some people that I've purchased
Okay.
some from, and I've seen them at shows. I just bought a clear one from a show. But for those that don't know Terlingua type calcite, it's named for the Terlingua mine
In Texas.
down in Texas.
Yep.
You can also find them in Mexico, but they're calcites that will be pink or blue in UV depending on what wavelength you use.
And they're
So
so pretty.
yeah, so under, oh gosh, I feel like I'm gonna get wrong.
Pink is
Under,
long wave.
yeah, pink is long wave, and
Mm-hmm.
then blue is short wave, and I believe they're very phosphorescent too. So when you shut the UV lights off, they glow for sometimes
Yeah.
seconds afterwards.
Yeah, they're very pretty.
So those are really hot. I really like those. There's an article, if you're not in the Fluorescent Minerals Society, you should join. I'll put that out there. They do like a quarterly journal that they put out of articles, and someone mentioned they had found Terlingua type calcite in Iowa,
What?
and it's from it's actually
That's crazy.
it's they lined I believe it's the Cedar River with a bunch of riprap, and we're talking miles and miles of riprap along the banks of the river for flood protection and erosion control. And they found within the limestone, they found these calcite crystals, and they were just driving through on a road trip, and they found out that the calcites were Terlingua type. They're not as bright. So if you think you're going to go there and find like super bright, it's nowhere near what you can find down in Texas. But I went down and found some, and they are not every single piece. So you do have to check them. But I was able to hit just with like a long wave kind of, in a backpack or something, you can hit it. And the ones that show a little bit you'll know that they are. But yeah, Terlingua type calcites are really cool. Yeah, and it's so weird, sometimes my tastes just change, and it's one of those you never know until you see a picture of something, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my favorite ones. If you ask me today, I'm sure it'll probably change in a couple months or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, or once I finally get a rock saw or something like that, I'm sure I'm gonna start branching out into a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna grab mine, but it's like right there, but I'm not. It's like I kind of I felt a little. It's like I want a bigger one. It's only like this a small.
Of Terlingua.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got, so there's another story with that too. There was someone on Facebook that was selling them, and I said, I really want a nice one. This was a couple years ago, and so we talked, and I was like, okay, I want to spend like maybe like $100, and it was going to be like a bigger piece, and he shipped it to me, and I remember because there was a holiday on Monday, and I was getting home on like Wednesday. And I was like, okay, it'll be there like on Thursday. Well, it was fast, and it got there on Wednesday, and I came home Wednesday night, and it wasn't there.
Oh.
And someone in my apartment had stolen my box, and I was like, I can't find it anywhere.
And they're probably thinking it was something cool and not a rock.
Yeah, they're like, oh, probably this is heavy, a couple pounds or whatever. And yeah, so I was really upset, and so I messaged the seller. Was really great. I messaged him and said, "Hey, like I'm not trying to get my money back. I understand, like you're out the rock, whatever." But and he gave me a really good deal on a second one. So I was able to get another one, which was really nice. And that's
sad though.
Yeah, and it's one of those like I don't ship anything to me anymore. I've got parents or people that I'll have stuff sent to because You know, when you see some of those things online and it's like, oh, that rock, or, you know, I've seen, you know,
You can't replace it. It was like that one and only.
yeah, like I
Yeah,
had that
it's
happen
like,
too. Someone was selling Lake Superior agates. I'm not going to mention their name, but they were selling, and there was one. It looked really cool. It was like a 6 ounce Lake Superior agate, and the banding in it with how it was broken and cut looked like a penguin. And I was like,
oh,
that's really cool.
yeah.
So I, you know, purchased it and whatever. And he was kind of odd and wasn't shipping it. And then he got it shipped finally, and I got it, and he was like, oh, I threw in a bunch of bonus stuff, and I was looking and I was like, these are not what I ordered.
Hmm.
And I weighed every single one of them, and none of them were over like 4 ounces, and it's supposed to be a 6 ounce stone. And I was like, okay, you, like, I asked for the stone. If you didn't have it, refund my money, whatever, but don't try to, you know, do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So you'll run into that every so often, but I'll
Yeah.
say, you know, 99% of the
Yeah.
things I've bought from people online are really great. Just anytime, I will say, if you're buying stuff on Facebook or anything, if you ever have the slightest gut feeling something's not right, if they're like, oh, we'll do, you know, friends and family on PayPal or whatever, like, I will not do that. If they want to upcharge me 3% to pay that or whatever, as long as I get the protection from PayPal, I'll do
Yes.
that. I will say, if you are ever selling anything on Facebook, include that in your price. Don't
Yeah.
be those people that, like, someone thinks they're going to get it and then you don't have that, because as a buyer, I want to make sure that I'm getting the rock. And if I give you the money and it's friends and family, PayPal will do nothing. If you say,
Right.
hey, this was supposed to happen,
Correct.
they go, well, too bad.
Yeah.
You
Who's
didn't
your
select the
friend?
right thing. Yeah. So yeah, I will always, the first time I buy anything from anyone that I haven't done business with, I'll always do the with the protection. And then if I do business once and I find, you know, they're trusted, I'll do friends and family. But don't ever put yourself in a situation where, you know, I've heard stories of people dropping hundreds of dollars on agates or rocks or whatever, and then, you know, people will get strung along for months and then they never get it. And there's nothing that banks can do. So just be careful if you ever do that. But there's a lot of really good Facebook groups, well moderated ones too. So that's another good source beyond, you know, rock shows or eBay.
I have a curious question.
Yes.
And maybe it may be, I know they say there's never a stupid question, but it might be stupid. So when people find these agates, you know, they're rather small. They're not typically like big boulders, right? Well, I mean, there are some out west. We're talking about like Lake Superior area, whatever.
Right, right.
Do you think we're going to run out of collecting agates?
Well, I mean, the people are still finding agates in the host rock. So I'm not sure if that would ever happen. You know, in Minnesota, we'll find them on construction sites and stuff where people dig down into the glacial till. But
Speaking just of on the lakeshore.
yeah, on the lakeshore, I mean, it's hard because, like, it's obviously been picked over. When you talk to older people and they'll say, yeah, I could find a 6 ounce agate on, you know, Lake Superior. And you talk to people now, it's like you almost hear of no one finding a 6 ounce, you know, on Lake Superior. It does happen, you know, I'll hear maybe once or so a year, I'll hear of someone, but it's just not like you used to. I don't think we're ever going to necessarily run out, but just like any other natural thing, there's only so much that gets generated, and you aren't going to wait 10,000 years for the next glacier to plow them out, or, you know, the rocks to get turned over that much. Like, yeah, we're going to get low on them, but that's the
Okay.
nice thing with Lake Superior agates, though, too. I will say, most people think you have to be on the beaches of Lake Superior, and you can find them all the way down through Iowa, even into like Nebraska, Kansas, like some of
Well,
those
there's
spots.
people who find them all the way through the whole Mississippi,
Yeah, yeah, and
like
and
all
it's
the way down.
yeah. So in the basalt that the Lake Superior agates form in, it's over 1 billion years old. So we've had a lot of glacial cycles after that, and, you know, you can find them, you know, yeah, well south of Minnesota and even, you know, south of Iowa.
Yeah, I've heard. I've got a friend in Illinois who goes to the Mississippi River, and I mean, Mississippi River is in Illinois, right?
Yep. Yeah, on the
Okay,
west side.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. he says he finds them there. So and I learned this like last year. I was like, what? I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and
I
that's one
mean,
of those things, like, we've talked about, like, doing research and studying things, and, if you think, like, oh, well, if the glaciers move something this way, and then the river goes down here, you could probably find it down the river, like, it's those
mm-hmm,
kinds of things too.
yeah.
There's a lot of, stuff like that. I've talked with a lot of people about Montana agates. In Minnesota, we find them. People in Minnesota call them honey agates. You find them more in western Minnesota or along the
Okay.
Minnesota River, and those are actually Montana agates.
They get like
And
dendrites in them.
yes, yeah, and I actually have some that I have found down by Mankato. And people have talked with me and they said, well, that can't happen because the Yellowstone River goes up and then, around Sydney, it hits the Missouri and it goes like straight east and then down through the Dakotas and it doesn't even get close to Minnesota. But what people don't understand is that the rivers didn't always flow that way. And
Mm-hmm.
before the glaciers came down, the Yellowstone actually flowed up into Canada. So the
Oh.
Montana agates actually flowed down the Yellowstone River into Canada, and then during the last glacial period, the ice sheet came down and basically stopped the Yellowstone where it's at now, and the Yellowstone merged with the Missouri and kind of goes along where the old
Ah.
ice sheet boundary was.
Okay.
So, what happened with that too then is all the agates that were up in Canada, the Des Moines lobe of the Laurentide ice sheet came down through western Minnesota, pushed all those agates that were in Canada down into Minnesota. So I mean, that's the kind of stuff I really like is, thinking about the story of,
Yeah.
okay, I found a
Yeah.
Montana agate in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it had to form, 250 million years ago or 250,000 years ago. Um, whatever dates you want to get, for that, which I know can be a discussion point, but, a
Right.
couple
Right. Right.
hundred
Depending
million
on what
years
you
ago.
believe. Right.
Yeah, there's thoughts about that too, because you can find Montana agates in Flaxville gravel that's a couple million years old, which is older than the Yellowstone eruptions, and so they don't think the Yellowstone is actually the source, but
Okay.
the Absaroka volcanics. But you think about, okay, so it formed in the Absaroka volcanics in the mountains of southern Montana, and then it had to get weathered out of the rock, carried all the way into Canada, and then the glaciers came down and pushed it from Canada
All
into
the way down.
Minnesota, and then it was exposed at some place that I was able to find it, and that's
That's
or the
cool.
Lake Superior agates, a billion-year-old basalt that it formed in with a bunch of iron and different stuff to make it red, and then glaciers and things that pushed over it, and that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy when you look at a rock, and it's not just a rock, it's got a story of
Yeah.
where it
It's got a
came from, how it
story.
formed,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really neat to me to learn is that the story behind it, and I like how you use that word, the story. I agree. Let's see. Let's see. Make sure we're. Does anybody have any questions for Ben? I mean, it could be, I guess, anything really at this point.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
rocks,
yeah.
geology.
Let me ask you. So, if
Hmm.
you're a new rockhound, and you, like I mentioned, we talked about resources and where to get started. But what kind of tools would you recommend for a new rockhound to get started in? Now, considering, let's consider, or let's not consider, because we know that in the Great Lakes, people aren't really using, they're not doing any kind of like mining. They're more doing beach combing.
Right, a
Um,
surface. Yeah.
right. So, in general, though, so let's just not focus on Great Lakes. In general, if you're a new rockhound and you are going to get tools, what kind of tools would you recommend for a new rockhound?
Um. Well, I go back and forth on mineral books, like identification books. I don't use them too much, and honestly, there's a lot on the internet that you can you can find it's, I think, knowing what to use to identify. So for rocks and minerals, uh, you never see them covered in dirt. So I know a lot of people, especially looking for agates, they like to carry squirt bottles. I've personally gotten so good at identifying some of it that I don't ever carry it. I've just found it's more weight to carry. I'd rather carry rocks than water for that purpose. So a squirt bottle is a really good thing, and really anything that you can use to help kind of get the dirt off. That's probably your number one thing, because you never will find, you know, a nice polished looking stone just sitting on the ground. It's always going to be dirty. So that's probably one of the top ones.
And that's interesting
And
that you
then
said that, because when I've asked this question before, no one said that. So that's interesting. Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's honestly, you know, I see so many people, and that's also why I like some of the Facebook groups, is people will post like they're on a beach and they see an agate, and I do it a lot too. Is I'll take a photo, and it's kind of one of those like, where's Waldo? Like, find the agate. And those really help if you were trying to start out. And it's not just agates, but any mineral, or geodes too. Like people posting raw photos of geodes, like you'd never think to some of the shapes of what to look for. And if people are
Right.
posting what they look like out there, that's going to help you way more than some of the other cut polished looking stones. And then anything that can help you sort of with that too, kind of get to what it actually looks like. So like a rock hammer, those are really good to break them open. If you're breaking rocks, try to use the flat side, not the pointy end. I know whenever I go and I've got little Boy Scouts and I go, here's a rock hammer and some safety glasses, and they always do the pointy end, and I'm like, nope, that's actually not the end you want to use. Use the flat one and break it. And then you get the points are all meshed down because they just want to hit it. But a rock hammer is really good. And then just getting out, honestly. Make sure that you're comfortable, I would say, is probably one of the also the bigger things. So having proper footwear, sunscreen, water, the good hiking boots, and something to carry your rocks that's not going to kill your back is really key to either buckets or a nice backpack or something, because
Mm-hmm.
the more time that you spend on it, the more you're going to get from it. So the most that you can do to get yourself out there as much as you can, that's going to be your best tool, is experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And as the more you do it, you learn. I mean, you just, even if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, when you get out there, even if it's the same place, it's like you start to, I can't even describe it. You just,
Yeah, it's almost like
it's almost like connect. I don't know. I'm gonna say connection, but it's.
it's
I do
I like
actually. I
the
do want to say connection. It's like you
I
understand what you're looking at. I don't
yeah,
know.
I always think about it as like a geologist. It's like when Neo in the Matrix, and he like has the code that forms, and everything like makes sense to him. And like being a geologist, that's kind of what it's like. Is I'll go to a gravel bar and it's like, oh, basalt, granite, chert, whatever. Oh, that's got some waxy texture. It's kind of pitted.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit translucent. Pick it up. Oh, it's an agate. So it's one of those, yeah, like you start recognizing the subtle
Yes.
patterns. I will say, if you are trying to identify like Lake Superior agates or anything, honestly, my best thing that I've done is look for Montana agates, because if you go out to Montana, you will find more agates than you will have on any beach or whatever in Minnesota. And because a lot of them are more of that honey, they're more clear. Sometimes when you get out and look for those on the river and it's a sunny day, I mean, I've taken photos, the sun will hit those agates and it's almost like a light bulb sitting on the
Oh yeah.
gravel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once you start finding some of those, then
That
you start
is.
finding the ones that don't quite look like that and are a little bit dirtier. And then, from there, you really start to get, what they call the eye for it. I went to Montana, I think it was 2 years ago, and I was out on a gravel bar, and because of the river and stuff, there wasn't really good ice that year. And I ended up seeing it was about that big, just a little bit peeking up, and I pulled it out, and it's like a pound and a half agate. that I found just from that little bit that was peeking up. And so once you start getting that real good eye for it, and knowing what to look for, that's really helpful. It looks like
Yeah, I was looking at
so
Greg's.
yeah, so Greg's asking for
Yeah.
Lake Superior agates, is it best on a rainy, cloudy, sunny night? I will say if you're hunting at night, you're probably trespassing into pits, and I would say that you should not do that for a whole wide variety of reasons. But I will say a rainy day is my favorite. I have found they pop so much more. When I was dating my fiance, I took her to a farm field in the rain, and because we just started dating, she actually did it. She won't do it anymore, but it was, she was finding them, and she almost has no experience. And so a rainy day is really the best. Just prep for it. But some people say sunny is good, but then you start dealing with shadows, and you got to walk a certain way so you're not shadowing, covering yourself up with it. I always tell people the best time is just to get out whenever you can. If you've got a day off of work and it's raining, go for it. If it's really hot and sunny, go for as long as you can. Like, do what you can, and you'll start picking up, on a cloudy day, sunny day, whatever. You can start picking them up in all kinds of lighting.
Well, I think Greg is from Canada, and it sounds like with his questions, maybe Greg might be thinking about coming down, and he's probably maybe looking for an ideal time to come, is what I'm grasping, if that's correct, Greg.
Yeah. So if you, springtime's always the best time in any place that gets snow, because everything will be turned over when the snow melts. So if you can get out when the snow melts, unfortunately in Minnesota, that looks like it's never going to happen, because we got dumped on, and then they're talking where I'm at another 4 inches tomorrow, and I'm actually headed up to Duluth this weekend for some hockey games, and they're talking like another 8 to 10 and 12 inches in Duluth. So it's never going to end in Minnesota, it seems like. So whenever that snow does end, everything's going to be fresh and turned over. With farm fields, I will say it really depends too on the farmer. Some farmers are okay if you kind of go out more later in the season, but for me, the farm field that I go to, that I've got access to, the farmer says, once I plant, I don't want you out there anymore. So I get until I go out there, and then when I can tell he's planted, I'll spend a couple hours walking around, and I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm done for the year. Also whenever they till up their soil, the farmers, when they do that, that's good. Lake Superior, if you're going on the beaches, actually the fall's really good. You get some of those really big November storms, and it'll turn up those rocks. And that's true for pretty much anywhere on Lake Superior. You're going for fluorescent sodalite. If you can get that waves to turn over that stuff, that's going to be the best.
So you're going to want to come right after a good storm.
Yeah, if you can time it that way. But I've been out places, like California, Oregon, looking for agates on the coast, and you always want to go at low tide, and sometimes that's middle of the night, and I just go, you know what? If I can't go out and it's not low tide, I'm just going to go out. And you'll find them. It just won't be, the ideal or the best conditions. But I always tell people, there's the best conditions, and there's the conditions that you get. So whatever you can do. I'm gonna
talk to this one. This is from our from YouTube.
From YouTube, yes.
I got the answer for this one. So yes, you're talking about in Alpena, Michigan. In probably about 3, maybe. Gosh, I could Google it. It's going to be like 3 to 4 hours south or less. Come down to where I live in Sylvania, Ohio. There is Fossil Park, and we have tons of brachiopods, trilobites, really great trilobites. I mean, like really good trilobites. Whatever is in that Devonian period for this area, the Sylvania area is really known area for fossils, and it's free. They open from June to I think October, and you just what they do is they take the quarries that are right here, and they have like this dump that they bring over to the fossil park, for people to go through. And I don't know the schedule of when they dump, because obviously when they dump is the ideal time to go. But definitely worth it if, I'm not sure how far up north in Michigan you are, but I have collected some really, really nice fossils from there. So I would recommend Fossil Park for sure.
There's also, I mean, Petoskey stones are fossils. You
Oh
got
yeah, for sure, for
your
sure.
coral or the Charlevoix, on the west part of the lower peninsula of Michigan, or I guess northwest part. You've got Petoskey stones too. But as far as clubs go, and I will say this for mineral clubs, they are some of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. And I went out to Montana. I think I was in grad school, or maybe I was in Chicago. I can't remember, but I was out of the state, and I said, you know what, I want to go out to Montana when the snow melts and the ice goes out, and everything's gonna be turned up and it's gonna be great. Well, I mistimed it and I was late, and everything was blown out. All of my spots were underwater, and
Oh.
I ended up emailing I think it was maybe the Billings Rock Club. And shout out to Doug True, who is like the president now of like the AFMS, the like Americas, like all of that. He was then the president, and I said, hey, do you have any spots that you know of? I'm out here on vacation. I'm in Montana. And I just emailed the club, and he responded and said, yeah, there's a couple spots here, there, whatever. But by the way, if you want, I can take you out and look for Bear Canyon agates. And he knew of a place that wasn't in the main canyon to find Bear Canyon agates. And here's someone that I've never met before. I've never talked to. He doesn't know who I am. I just said, hey, I'm with I was in Chicago. I remember now. I was in Chicago. I said, hey, I'm with the Chicago Mineral Club, Chicago Rock and Mineral Society. I'm out here on vacation. And he just, gave me pointers. And it's the same thing too for our club trip. We actually have a spot that we know of to get botryoidal fluorite.
Oh.
It's like one of two spots, I think, in North America that fluorite forms in a botryoidal form.
Right.
And it's fluorescent and shortwave green. And you can find it online if you search around for it. But besides,
and where's the
buying
location?
it's in Colorado. It's north of
Okay.
Canyon City. And that's all the information you're going to get. No one has any information. There's no pin dropped anywhere. There's no directions of how to get there. You can't find it anywhere. And we were doing a club trip out there for the Minnesota Mineral Club, and I ended up finding one of the Colorado clubs had done a trip for it. And I found a name and an email, and I sent her an email, and I said, hey, we're part of a club. We're going to be down there. It's not a commercial thing. We're not buying to sell or anything crazy like that. Can you let us know how to get there? And she sent us, step-by-step directions of how to get up there. And we talked a bit about some of the other stuff. And, the mineral clubs are your best resource, for everything. And if you're beginning, if you're experienced, they're always going to have spots and be able to help you out. So
let me ask you this real quick.
Okay.
Sorry. No, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so yeah, if you're ever looking at like a certain area, look up the rock clubs in that area and just send them a message. And if you're a member of a different club, just start out with that. Say, hey, I'm a member of this club. I'm on vacation out here, going to be out there, or do what I do and say, I'm planning a trip for my club. Do you have any ideas? Or sometimes you'll end up doing joint field trips with clubs, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask, so if there were some Canadians that wanted to join the clubs, is that something that you allow?
Yeah, I don't think we have any like only open to Americans or anything like that. And we do a trip. We've just now started back up to do trips up to Canada, to find amethyst in Thunder Bay. So,
if there was somebody up in Ontario that wanted to join your club, they could, and then come to these field trips. That's maybe something possible.
Yeah. I mean, we're open to everyone. So if you, like I said, we had the people that came to Montana. We had people drive from Missouri, Michigan, California, all over the place that they drove out with our club, and they had never been to any other in-person meeting. They don't come to our annual show.
They just pay the fee and they get to go to the field trips.
Yep.
That's
Yeah. So it
cool.
gets you that access pass.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, too, our meetings, we also Zoom them as well. So
Yeah, so you can join through online.
yeah. And we usually have, maybe 20, 30 people in person at our meetings, but we have over 700 members. So
Wow.
most people either don't go to the meetings or they join online.
Wow,
But
700 members? That's crazy.
yeah. We like, I think because we were one of the few clubs that were active during COVID, I think we like doubled our membership over COVID.
Wow, that's
So,
cool. That's really
yeah,
cool.
and then just to respond back to Greg, who was asking about crossing the border. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know there are some places in Thunder Bay you can find like sea maggots and things, but I'm not sure exactly where. I do know Paradise Beach, just north of Grand Marais in Minnesota, so that's pretty close to the Canadian border. There you can find some cool kind of pastel-y Lake Superior agates up there. So if you want to dip your toe into Minnesota, that's a good spot. That's not too far.
So, I was going to say, Greg, real quick. So, I will tell you, Greg, I came up and hunted last June with Tom and Alan. And I brought all of my Rockhound gear across the border. All kinds of like pickaxes, sledges. I had like a 10-pound sledge. Like I had a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm not sure what gear you're maybe concerned about crossing the border, but I had everything and I didn't have any issues crossing.
I will say, so I went to school in Duluth for grad school, and
you do have to clean your rocks coming back, but
yeah. So I will say I did have, I think actually my roommate at the time, who he was actually working with a mine in Canada, and him and a professor had crossed over and were coming back, and they had muddy boots, and Border Patrol was like, nope,
no soil.
Yeah, soil, so anything like that.
What I had to do is and I did this in Arkansas when I went down to Arkansas. Anyways, is I just go to a car wash. I took all my buckets. I cleaned them. I did. I power hosed them with the car, the self-service.
Yeah.
And when I went through customs, they were like, do you have, I was like, I got rocks. And they were like, are they, no soil? I go, oh no, I took them to the car wash. They're clean. They didn't ask to see them, but they just wanted to make sure that you're not bringing any soil, just, for any kind of, spores or anything like that you can bring over pathogens.
Yeah, the agricultural people are really picky about, sometimes, like they, for overseas stuff like fruit and all that kind of stuff. But, just crossing the border, they, boots or anything that has a bunch of mud on it, just make sure it's knocked off. But, I don't think there's, unless you're got something else that's legal in Canada that's not legal in Minnesota.
One I learned was mace. I accidentally had mace with me, and that was an issue because it's legal in the U.S. and not there. And that was going to Canada. And all they told me to do was just get rid of it. So and they actually let me keep it because I was like, I'm a woman and I'm by myself, so they let me keep it. But they were like, just put it away. They were like, if you pull this out in Canada, you will it'll be bad. So I'm like, I won't. It's just for emergency. So that was the only issue I personally had coming from, America to Canada. But I mean, I had all kinds of stuff that could be considered weapons and they didn't give a shit about it. It was like, I had a lot of equipment back there. So Greg, I don't think that would be an issue if you wanted to come on down. And if you do come down, contact me because I'm not far from you guys. So Jeff, you asked a question about if there was any kind of transportation, and we had discussed that earlier. You would have to provide your own transportation to these destinations through the Mineral Club, correct, Ben?
Yeah, so the Mineral Club, we basically organize the mineral, fossil, rock collecting, whatever it is, but everything else is sort of up to you. We have so many people that, like, for instance, to Colorado, I had a bunch of airline points. I flew myself. Some people drove. For Montana, we've had people that they want to do like some side trips before or after. So, they'll drive themselves and then stay later and go places. Some people want to stay in a hotel. Some people want to stay Airbnb. Some people want to camp, whatever. So we don't organize any of that. It's sort of we'll tell you, hey, meet at this gas station on this day at 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever, and then we're going to go out and just kind of go from there.
So it's just access to the destination, just access.
Yeah, and you know, some of it's, you know, like our Montana trip, it's a private ranch that we go collect agates and petrified wood on, and the rancher doesn't allow anybody else but our club, so you're getting exclusive access to that. Like the Dinosaur Ranch, they, you know, they aren't even allowing public this year. They're allowing our group. So it's really, you know, you're getting that the people that know what they're doing, and also it's just a fun time. You're with like-minded people.
Yes,
You know, at the end of the
best
day,
part, yeah.
we'll go to you know, in Montana, it's like we'll sit there in Glendive and sit at a motel and have some drinks, and everyone's just whipping out agates and things they found, and you know,
like,
look
it's
at this
so
one.
fun.
And
yeah,
it's just a lot of fun, and you're with, you know, so many like-minded people. It's, you know, that's the part that's really fun too.
yeah.
And everyone understands. You can be outside and it's 95 degrees and you're out there for 6 hours on a hill and you're looking for agates, and that's what everyone else is doing. They all get it. No one's gonna say, you know, you're too dirty or too smelly, or why do you have a bucket full of rocks?
Right.
You know, it's
yeah. Hello, Justin from Ontario. All right, so we are getting close. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I was telling you, see, you're a guest for the first time, and it goes by so fast.
It's interesting too to be on this side. I don't know if I've ever really been interviewed like this. I've had some, you know, like a newspaper's interviewed me, but I haven't really had this.
Yeah, it's different. It really is. Everybody, when I talk to them before the show, you know, some people say, I don't know if I have enough to talk about. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, if you love rocks, you will have enough. We keep going. You know, there's always enough to talk about. So, yeah, so we are definitely going to wrap up for the evening. And thank you for being our guest tonight. From here, you know, for this season, it's going to be Ben and I and our guest. So the next show, we will have Ellie Ringo. Super excited to talk with her.
She's Ellie Knows Rocks, if you follow her on social media.
Ellie Knows Rocks, and she is such a badass. Oh my God. Like, I am so excited to talk with her, to hear about her story, and, you know, just learn from her. So she's also, she's a geologist, correct? I mean,
yeah, I was kind of looking up at you know, some of her stuff, because I honestly, I hadn't heard of her, and now I'm kind of like, wow, how have I not heard of her? She has a bachelor's of science in geology, economic geology, and she worked for, I believe, a mining company for a few years, and then she kind of was looking for a way out and doing something she was more passionate about, and wound up what was it, Frozen Gold or whatever the show was called.
She was on some gold show. So
she wound up so she wound up doing that, and now she's just kind of doing, well, modeling, acting, content creating, all of that stuff.
She was just on set for a movie. You know, she's a gorgeous model. She plays in the dirt with rocks. Like, she's just a badass. I'm so excited. She will be our first guest on our season 2, which will be on April 19th. So everybody tune in for that. It will be a lot of fun. We have an excellent, our next season, we've got some really amazing guests. And it's going to just keep getting better. So super excited.
We have some really great guests that I know everyone will be really excited to hear more from. And with this new platform that we've got here, this is really slick, and I'm excited to see how this goes for the next few months, I guess. We're going all the way to October.
Yeah. So from April to October, we are going to be bringing you guests every other week, because, you know, it is going to be rock hounding season, and we're going to be out there getting rocks too. So
and we even have a live show. We're going to be doing live too.
We are going to be live in New York, May 31st. So that will be an excellent show. I mean, every show is going to be excellent. I'm excited.
That's right.
So we're going to sign out for tonight. And so I always say, peace out. I'll see you guys. Actually, we're going to have a month off. Going to take a break. So we will see you in a month, which will be April 19th.
Yep.
So
yeah, April 19th, same time, same place.
Yeah. Sounds good. Oh, let me just double check. Do we have any other questions before we go? No, I think we're good. All right.
Yeah, thanks
Have a
everyone
good night, guys.
Yeah,
Peace out.
for joining in.
Yes.
Bye everyone.